Hey folks, and welcome to Typology, the show on which we explore the mystery of the human personality and the great human adventure, all through the lens of the Enneagram. My name is Anthony Skinner, your producer and co-host. We've got Enneagram Type 2, Jason VanRuler, who is a psychotherapist, author, and nationally recognized speaker, joining us today. He specializes in communication, attachment, and relationships. He's got a great new book called Discovering Your Communication Type, The 5 Paths to Deeper Connection and Stronger Relationships. We have a really informative and super fun conversation with Jason today. I'm looking forward to you getting to hear it. Hey, that's it for me, Anthony Skinner. And without any further ado, here is the host of the show, Ian Cron.
Hey, Typology friends, welcome back. We're delighted that you're here today. As you heard in Anthony's brilliant introduction, we have with us our new friend, Jason VanRuler. He is the author of the new book, Discovering Your Communication Type, The 5 Paths to Deeper Connection and Stronger Relationships. More importantly, he is an Enneagram 2, and we'll jump into that and tickle the ears of our helpers. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Before we get into the book, we often like to start by asking guests how they discovered the Enneagram and what it was like to recognize, in your case, that you were a 2. What was that journey like and how did it land?
Yeah, well, it was good. It was good to realize that I'm in the right place as a therapist. So I have returned home. So I think it was shortly after my master's program that I was really seeking out, how can I better understand people? And I think one of the best ways we can do that is by understanding patterns, themes, and systems. And the Enneagram is so good, I think, at putting words to some things that we all feel, but don't always know how to say. And so when I connected with that and learned my type, it was really, I think, just inspirational in the sense that I felt really seen. And also the future kind of made more sense to me because I kind of thought, yeah, I think I'm in the right chair at the right table.
Yeah, agreed. There are lots of 2s and 9s. Well, there's therapists of all types, but we do see a lot of 2s and 9s, and both of which are beautiful at their work when they're in a good space. So 2s, known as the helpers, they are exquisitely attuned to what everyone else needs, right? But they genuinely kind of struggle to know what they need, right? And so I'm wondering, do you see that in yourself? And if so, what's a place in your life where that's shown up most honestly and recently?
Well, the good news is, Ian, I've figured it all out. So I don't have the struggles that other 2s might have. I mean, I recognize they have struggles, but I've actually solved that.
Yes.
So,
and of course, that actually itself is very 2.
It's very 2. And I'm also working through humility. So, yeah, that's strange. That's part of my journey as well. Totally. I mean, I think, one of the topics I've been talking about a lot lately is the gift we give best is the one we needed most. And I talk about that because I fall into that. I think I love to help people, but do struggle sometimes to know what I need and even to ask for that. I kind of do that thing where if I ask for something and you deliver, I make you feel weird for doing it. You ever have those people where you're like, I was trying to help you, but now I kind of feel weird and awkward for trying. Have you ever had that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite hobbies. Yeah, is to ask for help and then make it awkward and uncomfortable after. So I'm working on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are a therapist, and maybe you could help me understand the through line a little bit. Like, how did your own type and your own relational history lead you to becoming a therapist?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for me, and probably like a lot of people, therapy was super impactful in my own life. My parents divorced early, had trauma and abuse history as a kid. And so that led me to therapy. I always knew that I wanted to help. And I've always kind of thought in terms of patterns and themes and those things. And so I had started a career as a recruiter, actually, and I really enjoyed working with people making transition more than getting them a job. I was decent at getting them a job. They're like, Jason, you got this pretty well figured out, but you're really great at helping people that transition. And so for me, that was something that just seemed obvious. And I had a moment where I went back and this should have been my first clue, but when I was a child, I journaled about what I wanted to do. And I said I wanted to be a psychologist and live in a brownstone and write books. And so that was at 8, if you can believe that. So
wow,
I had already,
that's pretty specific.
And I had the journal. And the thing is, I was already wearing corduroys and penny loafers. So I decided the NBA was out. I wasn't going to be an astronaut. I wasn't, there was a lot of things I wasn't going to be. So I just knew then this is where you're headed, my friend.
You were focused, man.
Man, he had horn-rimmed glasses.
I did. I had the coat, the jacket with, the leather
the patches.
I've been dressing the part my whole life. I just needed to find the right job. So I did.
We need to get you a pipe and maybe some Carl Jung wall paintings.
I love this.
It's true. We need to have that. So my whole life, I just wanted to help people because I knew how much it helped me. And I think I just spent a lot of time looking for the right people to help. And when I found that, it was like lightning. It just kind of made sense to me.
Beautiful. So you have written a book about these 5 communication types. And I'm curious to know the story behind the story of the book, because people don't write books. Well, if I were cynical, I'd say that people write books because they see lanes of opportunity, right? But I come into this conversation with generous interpretation, and I'm just curious to know, for you, what's the story behind the writing of this book?
Yeah, well, really, I have a terrible business model. So I am constantly trying to put myself out of work and to allow people to do some of the things that I do in the therapy room on their own. And so one of the things I noticed in working with so many couples and teams is that we all had a different communication style. So I kind of attribute it to being almost like if you talk to someone from New York, they got a New York accent. If you talk to me from the Midwest, I speak like a Midwesterner. So we all had these kind of ways of speaking. And where it really stood out to me is that I did a lot of work with couples who were working through betrayal. And so what we would do is we would try to teach someone how to speak with empathy. And what they would do is they would read the script. So we'd come up with the script and we'd be like, this is the most empathetic thing you could say. Just, if you can read the script. And I would look up and down the line, and for some couples, the script would land. It was like they felt seen and heard. And so the partner would hear it and they'd go, okay, that's what I've been waiting for. And then for other people, not at all. And it just occurred to me, they're saying the same thing. Why is it different? And that question really led me down the path of there's got to be some predictable patterns and themes here that I can notice that might help people better connect.
Right. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it is amazing how much misery and suffering miscommunication causes. I see it in the corporate space where I do so much work, right? Not to mention all the inefficiencies, right? In terms of time. If people can learn, each other's communication styles, gosh, it's a huge plus. Otherwise we find ourselves talking past each other in the dark. All right. So you have 5 types. So walk me through the 5 types at a high level, right? Yeah. Just walk me through those 5 types.
Yeah. So all the types, I always just kind of have a disclaimer. There's no one better than the other. We all think ours is the best. So I'll say that, but there really is not one that's better than the other. They're all just opportunities and strengths. And so, it's paths, PATHS. And Enneagram people will, the P is the peacemaker. And I struggled a lot with that because I thought, man, I want to come up with a different P, but it just embodied the point, which is that peacemakers, when they're communicating, they're really great at reading people. They're really great at anticipating where they're going to go next and what's going to be said. And they're trying to always buff out the rough patches. So they're just sort of like, how do we make this perfectly glossy, wonderful conversation that ends at this point, even if it doesn't really end there? So peacemakers are wonderful. The A is the advocate. And the advocate is the person who's all about what's moral, what's right, and what's just. And so I always say, if you're going to have a best friend, they should be an advocate. Because if you're standing in a room and you're thinking, who's going to say something, it'll be them. They're going to have a hard time not saying it. The T is the thinker, and that's the person who's more of, they say less. They go internal. They're very choosy about their words. They want to be accurate and precise. A thinker, I'll give an example, is usually a person who, if I said to you, Ian, 38% of people do this, but it was actually 36. A thinker's losing sleep over that, right? Because they did not communicate with precision. The harbor is mine, and we're people who communicate a lot about feelings. In a discussion, we always want to drive it to, let's talk about your feelings, let's talk about my feelings, let's stay in that space. And then a spark is usually the communicator who you feel when they enter the room. They're charismatic. They know how to make everybody feel wonderful. They know how to keep a lot of energy and momentum going. They're kind of that public speaker-ish type person you think about when it comes to communication.
Interesting. I recently did a speaking event with Tony Robbins. And
wow.
Tony Robbins.
That's awesome.
Just as you said spark, I was like, Tony Robbins.
He was one of the guys I thought of. Yeah, he would be a spark.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely a spark. And a very honestly didn't know that a ton about him before I did it, but it was really fun to watch a guy in action who has mastered public communication the way he has. This guy spoke for 5 hours on his feet without sitting down.
Wow.
5 hours.
Only 5 hours. Okay. Well, so kind of a lightweight. Maybe he'll work up to more. That's 5 hours is amazing for anybody, but my guess is he was entertaining the whole time too.
Oh, people were riveted on the edge of their seats, could not get enough. No, people were afraid to go to the bathroom. Like, what am I going to miss?
I love that. I want to be that guy. That is not my type, but I love that for him. That is awesome.
Yeah, I would need a new pair of shoes for that, or change them halfway through the talk.
Absolutely.
I wonder what kind of jacket he was wearing at 8 years old.
Oh, that's right.
The spark jacket. Yes.
The spark jacket. Exactly. So every communication type has a blind spot, right? Mm-hmm. Something they genuinely can't see about the effect that they're having on others. So what do you think are the most costly blind spots in your work?
Yeah. Do you want me to go through for each one or just in general?
Sure. Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the peacemaker's blind spot is that every time you try to control the outcome of that conversation, you often miss things that needed to be said that didn't fit in with how you wanted it to look. And so their blind spot is they're trying to kind of manicure something in conversation, and sometimes something is outside of that. And so the peacemaker needs to learn to kind of control the conversation less and lean into that discomfort. The advocate's job or opportunity is you don't always have to be the person to say something. In the book I talk about, I was in line at an event and someone cut in front of me. And I was talking to someone and this guy was clearly an advocate, and he needed to say to the other person, they shouldn't cut because it's not right, even though it wasn't in front of them. And so not every conversation needs to be about what you think is right or wrong, because sometimes we miss other people. The thinker, they need to communicate more, and it's helpful for them to lean into communicating about feelings a bit, because always they can come across as a bit cold and they can seem like they're a little too strategic. The harbor needs to realize communication just about feelings makes a lot of people uncomfortable. I joke, but I say sometimes I'm a bad dinner party guest. I was at a dinner party and a friend came over and he's like, "What are you doing, Jason?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? What am I doing?" He's like, "Well, that guy that was talking to you just walked away and he was crying. Why was he crying?" And I was like, "Well, we were just talking about his feelings about his mother. I don't know. I mean, I guess it struck up something in him." And he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Talk about the weather, network." He's like, you don't always have to do that. but it's what I like to talk about, right? It's where I want to go. The spark, like a Tony, the thing that they have to realize is that is all entertaining, but that's not always the point. And if you're the most entertaining person in the room that everyone's looking at and talking to, it means they're not talking to anyone else. And so for them, they have to make space sometimes, even if they wouldn't actually have to, so they have to make that space for other people to step into it.
It's interesting. My impression of him isn't that he was an entertainer, though he was entertaining, right? But it was more like he is a constructive provocateur. He's very, which again is entertaining, but I wouldn't think of him as an entertainer. Like he has real substance and depth to some of the stuff to all the stuff that he does. It was a very interesting, as an Enneagram and a personality guy, it was a fascinating event to be a part of. I want to talk about the Enneagram because as you described these different types, right? The Enneagram clearly maps onto these 5 communication styles. Was that a conscious thing on your part, or was that something you went, oh my gosh, when you were finished, this was related, this has some Enneagram correlations?
Yeah, no, that's intentional. So for me, what I found is that I think, that is so good at mapping our personality. And I think our communication can be different. So just like kind of having the New York accent, you can have wildly different personality styles associated with that. So it is really the foundation that it's built on. And I think this is just something that's a bit adjacent or different than that. But I always wanted to list it because one of my things, and you maybe relate to this, is I always want to tell people kind of where this is informed by and what it's built on, because the Enneagram is foundational. I look at my practice, I look at the people I help, like that is a huge part of it. And so it occurred to me that it would be a giant miss not to include like, hey, you should know about these things too, because they inform this.
So map it for me. Let's just go through all 9 types and tell me, and I realize it's probably more complicated than this, but just for, simplicity's sake, like let's map these types into these 5 categories. Like where would you not be surprised to find each of these 9 types landing in your schema?
Well, the short answer to that is I think there could be a lot of overlap and there also might not. So one of the things that I kind of talk about in the book is that a lot of what our communication type is really just a reaction to our family and childhood. So there can be a lot of overlap, but where I see this show up most often is that people go, what voice was needed in my family? And so I think the Enneagram mixes into that. Obviously you can see, I think even like Challenger, if you look at like a number 8 and you see an advocate, or, you see some of these where it's like they could easily overlap. But what I want people to kind of understand is a lot of times my experience is that the communication type is a response to something more than it's actually just your personality. So for instance, growing up where I grew up in South Dakota, which is wonderful, but clearly Midwest, and I grew up with pretty stoic parents, we did not talk a lot about feelings. That was, we would have supper, but that was not usually the discussion. And so my argument is we all kind of show up in the opportunity spot, which, hey, we need a guy to talk about feelings. I'll be the guy. And I think then you start to see, oh, there's some Enneagram in there too, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm going to hold our feet to the fire on this because I'm fascinated. Give me the 5 types again.
Yep. So you have peacemaker, advocate, thinker, harbor, spark.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, ones could pretty easily fit into the advocate spot, particularly the subtype that's more concerned about advocating and reforming. Seems to me that 2s would fall into, what was the category again?
So you have peacemaker, which could be the helper or the harbor. I also think for 1, it could be a bit of a thinker too, because they want to be precise.
Yes, they're quite analytical. All right, 2s. All right, 3s. Spark?
Got to be the spark.
Could see a spark there. Yeah, could see the spark there.
Yeah. All right. And fours is interesting.
That one's kind of tricky.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be when you think identity. I mean, that I could see that as an advocate. I could also see it as a bit of a thinker. Both of those, I would say.
Yes. It's a little tricky. And the fours are going, oh, I love that. I love that. They can't fit me. They can't fit me.
Pin me down.
They're like,
I can't be in a category. I don't have a category. I'm alone.
Fours are just so special. They're just so special. They can't really be described or defined. Yes.
Yes.
Weren't you talking about the harbor being the one around the feelings too? Or did I miss that?
Harbors around the feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. And fours do have this superpower of empathy. So I think harbor is kind of a nice word for them when they're in a healthy spot. Fives, I guess our most logical place would be thinker. And honestly, I'd put 6 in thinker.
I was thinking that. Yep.
Just so much thinking, and so much unproductive thinking when they're not in a great space, right? Like it's just nonstop stream.
Taking kind of overthinking to the next level. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Over analyzing, overthinking, over planning, all that stuff. All right. What about 7?
I mean, you can see the spark connection there, I think, but also I could see a harbor as being that person who's going to help and encourage. And I mean, I could see probably those two.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing about 7s is they too, though they may not look like it, are deep thinkers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they really are. I mean, 5, 6, and 7, they're in the head triad. But that 7, man, can really be a thinker, though they often look very relational, tactile, but sometimes they act as harbors because they're uncomfortable with another person's anxiety or sadness or problems, and they'll go into help mode to resolve their problems so that the 7 no longer has to feel their bad feelings.
Yeah.
Yep. It's a safe spot to hide out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I always tell clients, I say, I love to sit in this chair, not that one. So my favorite spot to sit is in the one helping you solve this. And yes. I can see 7s kind of doing that same thing where they go, I love this chair. I don't like that chair so much.
Yeah, exactly. 8's spark. A social 8 could be a harbor.
I could see that too.
Harbor, yeah. And then 9, of course, would seem to fall into the peacemaker category, though a lot of 9s also have harbor qualities.
Yep, exactly.
Where people can feel very safe with 9s to talk. Though sometimes you have to be careful with 9s because they're so good at just being supportive and caring that people will come and just talk their ears off well beyond what the 9 is ready to do. You know what I mean? But the 9 won't stop you.
They just keep entertaining it, even if it's overwhelming.
Yeah, even if it's overwhelming. All right, so I love this. I love that the Enneagram maps onto this to some degree, and I recognize, but there's got to be hybrids of these, right? Like, in other words, life is not so simple, or our communication styles aren't bento boxes, right? So they're not walled off from each other. Do we migrate between when we talk to our children versus talking to our colleagues at work? Do we employ different communication styles?
Yeah, I think we show up in the way that makes sense in each environment. And so you might have to operate differently at work, or you might operate differently with your kids. Where I see this really obvious, though, is we tend to gravitate back towards our primary under pressure or in conflict, because that's really our heart for it. So even if we can kind of be the chameleon that shows up and, I can do this here and that there, and those are all skills. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to develop skills in each of them because that does help us to communicate better. What's true is that we do kind of go back towards that primary when it really counts. So if we're in conflict with someone, or sometimes I'll work with a team where there's one person that just doesn't fit. And the reason they don't fit is their primary is much different than everyone else's.
Yeah. there's a book, I'm sure you've read, Crucial Conversations, and in it, there's this idea that we have a style under stress. That in a crucial conversation, we tend to migrate toward violence or silence, which is a very simplistic kind of delineation between the two. And I can't unpack how they explain it more discreetly and more nuanced. And the word violence is not a great word there, but because it doesn't really explain what. Yeah,
it's kind of a word of a time that doesn't translate so well to now.
Yeah. But it just means assertive, sometimes domineering, sometimes, when we're under stress, we just kind of default to some patterns that are not skillful. So if someone finishes the book and they want to start somewhere concrete, like not completely overhaul their relational life, they just want to take one meaningful step, like what would you tell them?
Well, I mean, I think someone who's good at communication understands themselves, and someone who's great understands the people around them. And so I think if you're in a primary relationship, just try to understand that person. Because I think when we can make space for the difference, that changes everything. I know in my marriage, I'm married to a thinker. And so we struggle with that sometimes. And as I was writing the book, I was like, this is really good. You should listen to this, Jason. There's something in here for you. And so when we can kind of see the other person and go, hey, we're actually on the same team here. They just communicate differently. I think it gives us some grace and compassion we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah. So in your marriage, give me an example of how this works out.
Well, a typical one would be I come home, I've had some sort of exciting conversation, and I come in and I start to talk all about how I feel about it. Right. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. This is so joyful, blah, 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 blah. And my wife, as a thinker, starts to do the thing, where she's going, is it accurate? Is it precise? Is it right? And so she's like, well, that speaking agent sounds great. Where is it at? What are the details? How much does it pay? When is it? What will that require? And historically, I would see that as her trying to challenge me. When the reality is she was just communicating about what she communicates about. And so we'd sort of have this friction because I would say, well, I just want to talk about my feelings on this. And I want you to talk about your feelings on this. And her take would be, I want to talk about the actual way this is going to happen or not happen. I want to get into that. And so as I started to learn this, I just made some space for, she's not against me in this. Right. She's not trying to cut me off. She's trying to connect. It's just different. And I think that allowance gives you some connection you wouldn't have had otherwise.
She didn't leave in tears, did she, that conversation?
No, she did not. Thankfully,
Jason did.
Thanks a lot, Ian. Yes, I left in tears. She did not. Yes, that is accurate.
The thinker said, what's wrong with you? Why? What are you crying for again?
Again, being the key word. Again.
Hey, Typology listeners, like you, I strive to know myself better and become a more compassionate and self-aware person, both at home and at work. Now, by far, the Enneagram is the best tool I have found for helping me to realize that in my life. And while taking an Enneagram test to help figure out your type is a great starting point, many tests out there provide content that is difficult to digest on your own, not to mention the fact that many tests are poorly constructed. That's why I've worked hard for the past few years to create a quick and research-backed assessment that provides straightforward insights specific for your type, subtype, and wing, while also being easy to understand. Simply put, my new Typology Institute Enneagram Assessment offers incredibly useful information that you can use immediately to incorporate the genius of the Enneagram into every area of your life. And as a Typology listener, you can take 10% off your assessment when you enter the discount code Typology Podcast on the checkout page.
Just visit typologyinstitute.com/assessments to get your results today.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp.
One of the things Annie and I have done in recent years is spend our summers in Boulder, Colorado. And I have to tell you, there's something about waking up and seeing the mountains instead of traffic that recalibrates the soul. When I'm there, I try to protect my mornings a little more carefully. I'll get outside early, take a hike, sit with a cup of coffee in the sunshine, and remind myself that life is more than a checklist. The slower pace helps me remember something I forget all too easily. Just because summer is full doesn't mean it has to be frantic. And yet, if you're like many people, summer can bring its own kind of pressure. Vacations to plan, kids home from school, calendars filling up, expectations about making every moment count. That's why I think it's important to build in time for yourself. Therapy can help you better understand what you need, communicate healthy boundaries, and create a version of summer that feels nourishing instead of exhausting. So, let's talk about BetterHelp. BetterHelp does the initial matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. You complete a short questionnaire and they'll match you with a licensed therapist based on your needs and preferences. With over 30,000 therapists and more than 6 million people served globally, they've helped a lot of people find support. And if your therapist isn't the right fit, you can switch at any time. You don't have to say yes to everything this summer. Find support in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/typologypodcast. That's betterhelp.com/typologypodcast. So there's this great quote by Thomas Merton, and he says, the beginning of love is the will to let those we love be perfectly themselves, the resolution not to twist them to fit our own image. And then he goes on to say, if in loving them we do not love what they are, but only their potential likeness to ourselves, then we do not love them. We only love the reflection of ourselves we find in them. And I think that's, well, like typical Merton, right? It's like, 4-5
and very
sentences.
deep and very, I'm going to take a month to process that, but true.
Yeah, but it's so true. And I do think in relationships that has really helped me, that Merton quote. The will to let others be perfectly themselves. And I think one of the things the Enneagram does is it helps people understand that there are 8 other kinds of people in the world, and that our job is to not make them a facsimile of ourselves or expect them to be, and to judge them as, abnormal if they don't think, feel, and act the way that we do. And I like that in your marriage, you've had this wonderful insight that your partner is different, and we have to let them perfectly be themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, she'd be a bad actor if I tried to make her me. And likewise, so would I.
Right.
And I think you lose some of the beauty of the relationship when you do that. I think it takes work, and that's the part sometimes we resist. But I think, imagine how boring that relationship would be if you were actually successful at getting the other person to be you. There would be something lost in that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be married to me. Not by.
I have enough trouble just being me. I don't need any more. I'm just barely hanging on as it is. Yes.
Yeah. I've divorced myself millions of times. Literally millions of times. So is there a world in which there's a transformational path for each of these communication styles where they realize, for example, let's just make this up, that a thinker realizes, I need to actually include feelings in my life, in the way that I communicate, to be more rounded in my self-presentation. Is that a piece of this as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because otherwise, we lack that self-awareness and we don't always know how it lands. And so one of the stories I talk about is, and this is maybe a poor choice on their part, but I was hired by an accounting conference to come speak. And I laid it on thick with the feelings, so I've got a room of hundreds of accountants and I'm like, I know just what to do. Let's dig into the feelings. And it was crickets. It was not, no one was energized. It was not landing. And so what I had to realize is like, well, yeah, I love to speak that way. But if I'm here trying to actually connect with people, I have to become, like you said, a bit more well-rounded. Because otherwise it's about me and not about that actual connection.
Yeah, that's a read the room thing, right? And one time, this is many years ago, Anthony, you might remember this story. I was speaking somewhere and I started off with the saddest story you can imagine. I mean, this was just a tale of tragedy. It was a Russian novel.
See, I'm intrigued already. You didn't tell me the story. I want to hear this. I want to feel something right now. Yes.
And literally, I thought the room was going to be swept up into glory. And they just literally stared at me. It looks like someone had shot Novocaine into their faces. They were just like, and then at the break, I could tell it landed so flat. It landed so wrong. And of course, I was having a blast telling the story because, part of the Fours thing is telling sad, inspiring, moving, deep connection stories. And the room just looked at me like, are you depressed? Are you okay? Should you sit down? Should you take a break? And I've never done that again. Like every time I go out to speak, I pretty carefully think through who's in this audience. So I have a gig coming up. This is so fascinating. So a couple of weeks ago, I'm at that event with Tony Robbins. And then in a couple of weeks' time, I'm speaking to a group of people from a particular religious tradition that highly values community and humility. Very much values those two things. And they probably tend to be a little stoic. So just knowing that about them is an enormous advantage because my job is not only to figure out how to communicate ideas well and translate them well, but my job is also partly to love my audience. And if my audience doesn't feel like I deeply and sincerely care about their lives, we're going to have a long 8 hours together. They're just going to see me as being kind of slick and not really interested in them or just reading from a script or something like that. But if you don't come in at least with a modicum of concern for them, I think you do your clients a really great disservice, right? And what we're talking about here is pretty much the same thing, right? Like if you're a harbor person and you're speaking to a spark, well, how do you best love the spark? And it may be, I have to speak a little less about my feelings and a little bit more, and be maybe a little bit more assertive and straightforward than I normally would be. And the spark may think about the harbor person and go, my audience here is somebody that is more of a heart and feeling type. I might want to open this conversation by asking how their kids and family are first. You know what I mean? It's just, this is that whole self-awareness piece. This is that whole self-awareness piece that's so important. Yeah. Other examples like that?
Yeah. I mean, the spark one's a great one. I've got some friends who are, they do happen to be speakers and they're sparks. And so, we'll get on the phone and I've had to learn kind of what you said, because I'll go, hey, let's go to that deep place. And they'll kind of go, oh, I got to go, and so I had one friend and I would give him a hard time because every time I talked to him, we'd be going fast, and then I'd say, well, I'm kind of struggling with this. And they go, okay, that's awesome. I got to go. Take care. And so their room for growth was like, well, let's slow down and hear it. My room for growth was be really careful about what it is I'm going to say in that moment because my window is small. And that's not a bad thing. It's just what's true. And what I love so much about what you're saying is it's really about loving other people. It's about how we feel loved in communication, but also how we love other people. And we have to think beyond ourselves to do that, because otherwise it just turns into me saying, I demand that you accept my communication instead of meeting you where you're most likely to listen. And that's really my goal for people, is if you meet someone where they're likely to listen, they probably will.
Yeah, and I like that. It's a good place for us to start wrapping up our conversation because, the subtitle of the book is The 5 Paths to a Deeper Connection. Mm-hmm. And connection is the word worth kind of lingering on here, right? Because what we're trying to do is think through our own particular communication styles and how they land on other people so that we can establish deeper connection, right? Mm-hmm.
That's what we all want at the end of the day.
I guess, it oftentimes takes an experience in life, a difficult experience to get you to understand that that's what you were looking for all along. I think people can get distracted and pursue other things or put other things higher on the hierarchy of values when really what they're hunting for is connection, but it's hard for them to put that together in their own minds until something tough happens. That's my experience with humans,
Yeah. Well, I feel like some lessons in our life cost dollars and some cost experiences. And that's an experience lesson. That's not really one you can buy. It's one you have to experience and feel. And then you know it to be true. But I don't feel like it's very obvious until then.
Yeah. All right. Communication styles aside, what do you think is the single biggest obstacle standing between most people and the depth of connection they want with other people?
This is going to sound very simple, but it's just saying the thing. And you probably experience this too, but I talk to so many people who don't let others in. And they have a lot of thoughts and not a lot of words. And so I spend a lot of time encouraging people to just say the true thing and work from there. I think we're just out of practice. And so because we're out of practice having some of these conversations, we don't. And we make it to be bigger and more difficult than it is. And what's true is it's pretty simple. If it's on your heart and it matters to you and someone else looks at you and you matter to them, you should probably tell them.
Yeah. It's so funny not funny, kind of sad, that there's not a curriculum when you're like in 5th grade that teaches you how to have difficult conversations. There are so many things we should teach little kids that we don't teach little kids that I'm gobsmacked sometimes. Oh, Anthony, I used the word gobsmacked. Did you hear that?
That's a good word. That's a good word. But you do learn dodgeball and stuff in gym class. I mean, that's equally important. That's just as important as having difficult conversations in my
You got
book.
me.
Yes, absolutely.
You got me.
Yeah.
You got me. It's sort of a 6 of one, half dozen the other, right? Don't have a costly conversation. Throw a dodgeball into a kid's face. It's interesting. I'm now speaking out of my own trauma when I bring that up, but since I was almost always the last kid left.
Oh, me as well. Well, the corduroy, you couldn't run so fast with the corduroy. So it's nobody.
It hurt your throwing motion
was looking
too.
For me. They're like, why is that guy sweating already? And I was just standing there sweating profusely before it started. So I was not first pick.
All I can see is a 5th grader in corduroys, wide whale corduroys, with a tweed jacket and leather patches on the elbows with a pipe.
Yeah, I had to lay the pipe down to play dodgeball. Now I'm ready. And everyone's like, let's just save time. You're out. And I'm like, no one's hit me with the ball yet. And they're like, it's okay. It's all right. You can just be out. Yes.
Go sit and read over there.
Yes. Which I was happy doing anyway. I was like, this sounds great. I'm in my element.
But the thing is that the little kids that were getting smacked by the balls, they were coming over crying to you, telling you how they felt. So it all
and
works
I was
out
having
in the
that
end.
Conversation all day. Yeah, I was in session.
Listening
I was
to
billing.
them.
I was filling out my notes. I was doing all the things. Yes.
Why not? It's I have so much trauma related to gym classes that it's hard to know where to go now. Except
You sometimes feel like that was the point. Maybe that was the point of gym class.
I was about to say that. There are so many. Yes, it almost seems orchestrated by design. Gosh, how can we humiliate these 6th and 7th graders?
Hey, while we're here, Jason, maybe you could do some EMDR live on screen right now.
Let's just start tapping. We can tap our way through this. We're going to solve this.
I can tap. So one time, Anthony, by the way, we are going so far off the mark right now. So I went into the gym, into the locker room after sweating my, what off, watching other people exercise. And I went into the locker room and we were taking a shower, and a bunch of these guys got together and they threw me out of the locker room into which emptied into the student center.
Mm.
They threw me out the door without any clothes on.
Oh,
now you have to look at Jason's crying. That's so sweet.
Yeah, I'm very emotional about this. That sounds terrible.
It wasn't great. I was about 120 pounds, and I look like Barney Fife from Mayberry RFD. Do you remember Don Knotts?
I do,
Anthony.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was me as a sophomore in high school. And on that sad note, I think it's time to close this conversation so I can go.
I think our message landed. I think it landed with everyone.
I think it did.
Yes.
I think
it's unlike the time that you did that by choice, running through the dinner at the club in Greenwich.
Yeah, well, that was my junior year. So I had gotten used to being naked in public at that point.
Hey, they started it, you finished it. It's not your fault, it's theirs.
That's the thing. You have to remember this. You got to be careful about who you throw a dodgeball in their face. You got to be careful about who you pick, because chances are you're going to end up working for that guy.
That's right.
You're going to end up. That nerd is now running Anthropic. Okay, and you're working for him, and so be kind. Be kind to the nerds. All right. Hey, everybody, we've been talking to our new friend, Jason VanRuler, Enneagram 2. More importantly, the author of Discovering Your Connection Type, The 5 Paths to Deeper Connection and Stronger Relationships. I commend it to you. Go out, get it, read it, use it. That's what I say. Anthony, what do you say?
Amen and amen.
Oh, we're getting religious here. Is that the key?
I like that.
Somebody's trying to prove himself. Anyway, Jason, thanks so much for being on. Tell people where they learn about you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. You can learn about me at jasonvr.com, or I'm on socials at jason.vanruler.
Wonderful. All right, everybody listening. May you have love. May you have joy. May you have peace. May you have healing. May you have rest. Until next time, we love you. Bye.